Hello and welcome to another Daily Muppet. In today's video, we're going to talk about some good and some bad. To start it off, we're going to talk about the thing that obviously none of us want to think about today or talk about any further, but we have to, just briefly, I promise, which was the hammering, the ungodly hammering at Anfield of 7-0 by Manchester United, something we did not really expect, but for some reason always feels like it's on the cards. Just that absolute kind of drubbing against a good team. So let's get into that, and then we're going to talk about sale and transfers, because there is a lot of news on this, and it is about as positive as it's ever looked. We'll get to it in a second. Shoot, I wasn't trying to show this first, but let's come back to that. I'm not like a tactics person, but there's one picture before the first goal that I want to focus on, because part of the perspective I want to say is that my thoughts on the game in general. I tweeted one thing out. I don't want to focus on necessarily individuals totally. I actually thought United did quite well the first 30 to 45 minutes. Not the first 5 minutes, but after that, until that first goal, and especially up until halftime, I actually thought United were looking more likely to win. And one thing that I really, really want to focus on personally is not to explain the 7-0, but to explain how we get to these positions. United are... If you eliminate Brentford, City, and Liverpool have conceded something like, I think the answer is 18 goals, 23 games. It's a very good defensive record. Very good defensive record, including a great defensive record in Europe and in the cup games and stuff, no goals conceded at all. Very good defense in the League Cup, and one, I think, in the FA Cup. It's a good, very, very, very good defensive record. Offensively, United's scoring is 6th, very off the pace. We don't score enough goals. And it continues to bite us. The games where we draw, like Palace 1-1, what happened? Should have scored 3. Should have scored 4. Should put the game to bed. The games that we've been squeezing out these tight wins over and over because we can score once. Or best, we can score twice. Really close, we can score twice. And it's a serious problem. And it ties into the Liverpool game because it's about how things progress. You take your chances, you get in there and don't score, and the game gets away from you and it switches the other way. United should have been up 1 or 2 goals. And I've said this from the beginning of the season, from the start of last summer, that not to mean as a look at how it's right thing. I'm talking about it as a point of fact of where the club have been let down, where Erik ten Hag has been let down, was on this striker thing. He viewed it as a priority. They didn't give him the money for it. He was stuck with the Cristiano Ronaldo situation to start the year. Now we have Weghorst, and I've been, I'm going to be honest about this, and I'll talk about it on transfers because I spoke about it on Saturday. That's why we're not signing Weghorst this summer. If you watch a game like that, there's no goal threat. We switching the whole team around. Look at the balance of the team. Rashford at striker, Bruno at left wing, Antony at right wing, and Weghorst at 10. Why? Because we have no striker. We have no goal threat. And Weghorst is so much not a striker, he can't even play striker in many games. He's a hard worker. He's a nice player. He's not a striker. He's not what United need. and we have one goal threat, which is Marcus Rashford, who scored a lot of goals this year. Second, he's on 20-something, right? Second is Bruno with 7. Third is Casemiro and Fred with 6. Now, understand that for a minute. Generally, when your midfielders are on 19 goals, between the 3 of them, your 3 main midfielders, and obviously Eriksen has a few, but your 3 main midfielders who are healthy right now, they're on 19 goals. Usually you're scoring 80, 90 when that's happening, when you have that many goals from the midfield. 19. Because what are you getting? You're getting 20 from two forwards, 20 plus from two forwards, getting a 40-something. 10 more, 12 more from another forward. You're in the 50s. Your midfield adds 20. You're up to in the 70s. And you get a few headers. You get some bench players, each with 1, 2, 3 here or there, and you're in the 80s and 90s on goals scored. We're not half of that. Because there's no goals. There's no other forwards scoring. Anthony Martial not healthy. Antony doesn't score enough. He's not a direct threat enough. And that was illustrated by the game. There's no goal scorers, and it's a problem. It's a problem because teams can plan for us. Good teams can. They can plan for it. Look at Barcelona. What did we do? Fred scoring. Antony did score in the end. We needed Garnacho to come through, a young player to score goals. We've been here before against West Ham. That's the types of things we've been needing. An own goal and Casemiro scoring goals. And anyway, point being, it's obvious. It's Rashford, or we have to hope and pray we're going to get goals. That's the issue. And when that doesn't happen, things fall apart. And teams can plan for us easier. It throws off our whole shape. Instead of allowing Rashford on the left, it changes it. I think Eric got a lot of things wrong, but it is what it is. And I just want to highlight one picture, because while I know the 7-0 was real bad, to me, I kind of stopped looking at it as anything important after the second goal. The second goal was real bad. Turnover by Luke Shaw. Casemiro completely lost all his battles, and they scored. And then it was just a mess after that. But it's just not great. It was just bad. But that all kind of really doesn't matter. I don't know why they lost their heads. It is what it is. We'll go on with it. I'm sure Eric will deal with it. But this is the one picture I want to highlight. This is before the first goal, and I think this is where we lost the game. Now, we should have already been scoring goals, but again, we should have scored goals, and that's why I say that would have changed the game if we could have scored. But this is different. This is the first goal. I'm going to start at the top. Things that are odd about this game. Casemiro's over here at left center mid. This is the least dangerous area in this play. Off screen is Shaw over behind him. Usually Fred's over there. Fred's on the right today. Don't know why. Bruno's marking. Rashford's marking. Fred's marking Henderson. Weghorst is on Fabinho in the middle of the pitch. Gakpo's free. Completely free. The goal scorer on this play. This is the play they scored. Varane and Dalot are holding hands here, marking Darwin Nunez. And Antony is in dreamland. And there was a lot of that this game. There's videos going around. He just lets Robertson free all game. Now, I'm not going to pick on him because I don't know if that's instructed or not. It happened all game. Usually Antony tracks back. I don't get it. He didn't. Lets him free. Fred's up here on Henderson. There's nobody here. So the play goes on. Ball comes to Robertson. Dalot shoots out, lets Gakpo run behind him, and Fred's 10 yards behind him. And the goal happens. And it's like, that's just bound to happen. Weird things. Usually Casemiro would be somewhere in the center, and he would pick up that free man, leaving a free man on the touchline because that's the least dangerous area. Like when we played City, we let them have it on the sides. And we'd pick up the inside runner because both Liverpool and City do that quite well. Casemiro or Fred would pick up the inside runner and leave the person wide open. We did the opposite on this play. Picked up the wide runners and let the inside man open. I don't get it. It is what it is, but I don't get it. It made no sense whether it was tactics or decisions, but after that point, the game just fell apart. So on we go. Let's talk about the sale process. So news today and over the weekend, what has happened? We've progressed into the next stage of bidding, where parties are actually looking at the due diligences, looking at the books, and going over the finances, all of that. They're actually to actually make legitimate, full bids, and that is the next stage. That's where things are at right now. it's moved forward into that stage. Now, very interestingly, what's also being reported, and there should be no surprise there if you have been paying attention to what we've been saying since summer, practically since August, all the noise about minority bids and such, nope. Glazers are only considering their full sale opportunities first. That's what has been being reported now, and that they're looking for a sale. Always been the case. The whole thing with Rain, how many times have we said it? If they could have got minority investors earlier, they would have. They're looking at a full sale. That's why Rain are involved. That's why this is happening, and that's why things are moving forward. So at this stage, starting on Wednesday this week, from what I understand, starting Wednesday this week, discussions will occur over the following 7 to 14 days with parties in England, and then the bids will be made, and following that, they will select a bidder for exclusivity, where they will have direct talks with the Glazers and Rain to get a deal done. If they don't, they'll move on to the next party. But usually it gets done when it gets to that stage with the initial party. Other parties being involved, it's been reported there are multiple other parties to Sir Jim Ratcliffe and Qatar. Keegan yesterday said at least 2 other parties. Now, interestingly, in terms of who these other parties are, right now, it's not confirmation, but from what I was told, and I've asked about it since that day, I think in the early last week I said there was an American party that was kind of waiting, watching, etc., which is Stephen Pagliuca, owner of the Boston Celtics, who is one of the finalists for Chelsea and owns some of Atlanta. And from what I understand, he's very interested. He's already spoken with Rain and the Glazers, and what he's looking at, and he would already have kind of a group together to do this. This is not going to be run exactly like Chelsea's. The way that apparently Rain are doing this is, even though they're moving through this process and they wanted those indicative offers, I think I've mentioned this before, they're always open to more. And so I believe the way that Pagliuca and potentially at least one other party are looking at it is now they want to look at the books. They weren't really interested in doing the whole indicative offer show and making statements at the moment. They wanted to look at the books for real, see what the offers are, and see if they see the same value. And if they do, then they will come in with a bid. And so they could bid in 10 days. For the first time, first thing, they could bid in 10 days and become the preferred bidder. There's no preference from Rain or Glazers, oh, these people were first. It's going to be whoever comes in with the best bid, the most viable bid, and that's not just price, but all terms involved in the bid. So it could just get done anyway. So that's why it's going to be a little bit of a different process. It's not like, oh, these are the 4 selected and now we're moving into this and nobody else can come in. They're going to allow for something like what Ratcliffe did with Chelsea, coming in late with a bid. They'll be fine if somebody does that. They just want to get the best pay, the best deal for Manchester United. So, but I've been told that we should expect to have a preferred bidder in the next 4 weeks. And then that means April will be the month of exclusivity talks, process of the sale, and they can get right into action in May. So, the last thing on this is as part of the negotiations, last week you had all these stories about Avram, looking in and wants to keep the club and going to Wembley and all that. And like I said, it's about the money. It's always been about the money. They've always wanted a full sale. All of these stories, all this briefing out there is negotiations. And given that we're going into a period of time where they're going over the due diligences, expect it to be a bit more quiet because it's a lot more direct and they're not going to want people talking. But if you start seeing the bids come in and they're too low, you could see the same kind of discussions. However, what I would say is that, again, they only moved to this stage because the Glazers feel it's the only option to sell and because there's a willingness on both parties to move and meet in the middle. And so the negotiations, while they could be not necessarily immediate, this should result in that sale. It should. And you could see some stories and things like that, but a lot of it's going to be more direct talks at this point in time. So I believe we would see less of it in the media, but you never know. Point being, it's all been a negotiation. They've wanted a sale from day one. It's all coming through now, and it's being reported today the same thing, that Glazers are prioritizing a full sale. There's a couple stories about that now. They're looking at the full sale offers well before they are looking at anything minority-wise. So, unless they really can't get those offers up to a reasonable level, then they'll look at it. But even that statement is more a statement of negotiation. So at this stage, I think it's the most certain we've ever been that the club is going to be sold. It's all gone according to the plan. I mean, I appreciate everybody who watches these videos. If you have since the beginning, you know it's all gone exactly the way it's been expected since practically August on this. During the World Cup, things started heating up. That's when it finally came out publicly. Talks started, things move forward, etc. It just keeps going, and it's always leading towards that full sale no matter what's out there. So it's good news, and it's most likely, no matter what, the Glazers will be gone, because that is the thing at the end of this. And that's why I highlighted the point about the striker and all of that. It's the interference. It's the interference that leaves managers in tough positions where they have to do unusual things to try to solve it, and leads to situations like this when they don't have tools. I mean, we're Manchester United, don't have a striker. How insane is that? And it's been for years, man. It's been for years and years and years, this situation. Cavani, Ronaldo, all these stopgaps. We haven't had a striker since we bought Lukaku. I mean, it's insane under Jose Mourinho. It's insane. It's nonsense. It's absolutely ridiculous. And it's something that needs to end, because it's the most important, maybe the most important position in football, in my opinion, for a team that wants to dominate and win. I know the midfield is and all of that, but I think the striker, without it, it's just unusual. I mean, look at what Liverpool did with their forwards. Look what City do all the time. Anyway, it is what it is. So, moving into transfers then, so just briefly recapping what I said on Saturday, it's unlikely that Weghorst will be signed. The plans are to sign a top striker. There's potential return of another player, but we're not going to talk about that now. It's just potential. Either way, it does not seem that Weghorst will be signed, most likely. He does not fit the backup striker mold as of now. The priorities at the moment seem to be fully and completely that striker situation, sorting out the goalkeeper situation, and then addressing, based on sales at that point in time and based on how much money is spent on striker and goalkeeper situations, then addressing the midfield, center back, and right back positions. But those are going to be outs and ins. And as I said on Saturday, with regards to Sabitzer, the initial plan was to bring him in permanently, but it is a bit on hold at the moment, purely dependent on what happens, how he plays. We'll see if he gets a lot of minutes over the summer, but also who he replaces. If he comes in and maybe as the only signing this summer in the midfield, and as an alternate to a big signing in the midfield if they cannot get a major one. But some of that, in terms of how far the budget stretches, is on hold with the owner talk, but more on hold because of sales. You can get the striker, you can get the goalkeeper. Beyond that, you are going to need to get some sales and outs of players like Donny van de Beek, potentially McTominay, potentially others, in order to allow you to get people in without pushing that FFP cap of 90% and the next year 80 and the next year 70. You don't want to be way over and having to make cuts the next 2 years. So that's where things are at. They are still moving forward fully on all of their plans. They're still working on them. They're still expecting to carry them out. So the owner's situation is not really holding any of that work done, but it is expected to be resolved by May, so they can actually, they've planned earlier than ever with Eric and Murtaugh and all of that. They've worked really closely hand in hand, and and by summer, they can and should be able to operate very quickly and have players in for the preseason tour, at least in key positions before the sales. And that is the intention, and it shouldn't be held up by the owner situation. Okay? Thank you for watching this video. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn notifications on. I'll keep you updated throughout the week. Thank you.